Okay.
Hi, Debbie. Hi, Janelle.
Hello.
How are you? Thanks for joining us.
Thanks. I'm getting ready to drive home, so I don't know how vocal I'll be able to be.
Okay, no worries. If you just want to put us on mute, we totally understand. Everybody's busy on a Friday.
Sounds good. Thanks.
All right, well, I have 1:59, so we'll give it a couple more minutes as people are joining, and then we'll do some introductions. Oops. Right now, what's on your screen? Can you see me or can you see my slides?
I see you.
Okay, thanks. I get confused sometimes which thing is showing up. Make sure and save these other things here. Everybody been having a good week? It's been a busy one, that's for sure. All right. All right, I've got the top of the hour, so maybe we'll get started with introductions, and as people join, they can join in, then we'll catch them at the end. So welcome everybody. I am Christy Weiss with Mountain States Regional Genetics Network, and this is the Genetic Ambassadors April call for 2019. Thank you guys all for joining us. And we are excited to have on Dawn Bailey today, who's going to be co-presenting with me for the Serving on Groups training. So I'm so excited to have her. She's part of our Arizona State team. And then we also have some Mountain States updates that I'm going to wrap up with, and then hopefully we'll have a little bit of leftover time for some discussion and Q&A and idea sharing. So I thought we could do just a quick round robin introduction, short and sweet, and the icebreaker question for today. So tell us your name, where you're from, and what a group is that you serve on, if you are currently serving on a group. And Genetic Ambassadors is a group unto itself. So if this is the only thing that you're involved in at the moment, then you can say that, but it can be something in your community, at your state level, at the federal level, wherever you are possibly serving on a group. So let's start off. Dawn, do you want to start off introducing yourself, and then we can go around?
Sure, thank you. So I'm Dawn Bailey. As Christy said, I am part of our Arizona State team for the Mountain States Regional Genetics Network. I work within our MCH Title V program, and my role is to build and enhance the family engagement as a family engagement specialist. So this module is actually very near and dear to me. And in addition to Mountain States and the Ambassador, one of the groups I serve on most recently is I sit on our council for our Medicaid's long-term care. So that's been a new and a different group. So that's been interesting and exciting to be a part of.
Great, thanks, Dawn. Let's see. Next, I have on my list Daphne. Daphne, can you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Daphne. I'm from Huntsville, Texas. I have a grandson who has vascular EDS, and I'm on the Texas State team. I'm also in a few other genetic research collaboratives.
Perfect. Thank you, Daphne. And how about Adrian? Are you able to talk, Adrian? Do you have cell phone coverage?
I think so. Yeah. Hi.
Yep. Go ahead.
Great. So my name is Adrian Paradis. I'm from Colorado. I'm one of the genetic ambassadors, and I currently am serving on a I'm the regional representative actually for 7 states for Duke 15q Alliance, which my son has Duke 15q syndrome. And so glad to be here, and I've met Christy and done these trainings, and it's really helped me serve the families that I serve in those states.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us. How about Debbie? Are you there, Debbie?
Yes, I am. Hello, can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Debbie Bridge, and I work with the Texas Health and Human Services Commission. I'm also a participant on the Texas Genetic Ambassador team, and I am the project manager for Navigate Life Texas, which is a website built for children with special healthcare needs.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And Susan, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Susan Owens, and I'm from Garland, Texas, which is a suburb of Dallas. And I do autism biomedical research, and the big groups that I relate to are on the internet, actually, because I have 2 groups that have about 35,000 people on them, and I stay really busy. I also basically serve people that have undiagnosed issues.
Great. Thanks for sharing. We're glad you're here, Susan. And how about Janelle? I know you said you were possibly have service. Are you able to introduce yourself, Janelle?
Yep, I'm good.
Oh, good.
My name's Janelle Medina. I'm from Cheyenne, Wyoming. I have a 12-year-old that is about a year ago was recently diagnosed with a rare genetic mutation on the GABRB2 gene. Right now, currently the only group I serve on is this one, the genetic ambassadors.
Great. Thank you for being here. And anyone else, that's what I have written down on my list. Anyone else joined us by phone, or I'm looking?
I'm on here, Christy. It's Tracy Keller.
Okay, Tracy.
And Mary Meeker in Reno.
Oh, wow. Great, guys. Go ahead, Tracy. Introduce yourself, and then Mary, you go.
All right, Tracy Keller from Grand Junction, Colorado. I am the co-lead of the Colorado State team for Mountain States. My niche is fatty acid oxidation disorder. And that's it. I'm trying to get a consumer group started and kind of a tie-in to this genetic ambassadors program. So that's kind of where we're at.
Awesome. Thank you, Tracy. And Mary, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yes, I'm Mary Meeker. I'm the Executive Director with Family Ties of Nevada. And I serve on this group as well as the Board of Directors for a group called We Care About Kids. In addition to that, I serve on some other groups that aren't really family related, more community type, Keeping Truckee Meadows Beautiful, which is more of a group that cleans up our parks and stuff like that. And so, yeah, so I am for Nevada, I am on the group for the genetics team for Nevada.
Not only on the group, but you're a co-lead.
Oh, yeah, that too.
All right, perfect. Did I miss anybody? Anybody else? I know Annette is joining us. Annette, I won't make you talk because I know you're going to grab some lunch. So she was grabbing some lunch while we're doing this call. So if there's anybody else that I missed that's on the Genetic Ambassador call, please feel free to introduce yourself now. Did we get everyone? I think we got everyone. All right.
Hey, hey, it's Casey.
Oh, hey, Casey. How are you? Go ahead and introduce
How are
yourself.
you? I'm at work, so y'all are going to be muted, but this is Casey Singletary, and I'm co-lead for Texas, and I'm the mom of a 13-year-old son with PKU.
Awesome. Thank you. Go ahead and mute us. We totally understand. All right. So we're going to start off with our Serving on Groups training, which is a short module this month. We're skipping over module number 6, which is data. And Susan Owens, who is on this call, has graciously agreed to help me present data in June. So we're going to skip over data right now, and we're going to go to section 7, which is role of families on groups. And then in May, we're going to do section 8, which is skills. And then we'll come back to the data one in June. And then that will wrap us up for the whole Serving on Groups training. So I'm going to try and share my screen so you guys can see our slides. And this is the part, can you everybody see that? I'm going to make it big so you can see it better. How about that? Does that work for everybody?
Yeah.
Can you see that, Dawn?
Yes.
All right, great. So Dawn and I are going to present this together. She's going to do most of it because she's such an expert at all of this. But I was going to introduce this section and the role of families on groups. And these are just some questions that I think all of us have when we come to a new group. Where do I start? What's this group all about? What do I need to know about my role? What do I need to know about the group? And what ways might I represent perspectives of other families when I'm on a group, so that I'm not just representing my own personal experience with my own family, but how can I be a representative of other families? And then how might family organizations help? And then maybe what ways might I share my family's story? And this last part is so near and dear to my heart, because I feel like that in my own advocacy journey, this is something that has just been constantly evolving for me. And I think I always see it whenever I meet advocates at all stages of their journey, because, you know, when you're a new advocate, it's really hard to take what you feel like is volumes of information about your family's story and condense it down into maybe a minute, maybe 5 minutes that you have to present. And so I just feel like this is such an important piece of advocacy training, is really learning how to tell an effective story using your own personal experience. So Dawn's going to help us with that today. And I'm going to go to the next slide. And Dawn, do you want to take it from here?
Sure, thank you. I'm guessing either some or all of you may have been doing some of these other prior modules. So we've delved in a little bit more in depth about the various types of groups that are out there. It sounds like all of you are involved in groups at some level and even in multiple different levels. So this piece, I think, is just a small little recap of that, and maybe to keep in mind of note as you're growing in your role as a family representative or in the genetic ambassador world, you may be tapped to sit on additional groups or be invited to participate. So some of these things just to keep in mind as you're looking at those opportunities. Again, just making sure you know about the group, how to determine what the group's mission is, their purpose, the history of the group. I always find it important sometimes to look back and kind of ask, what changes or what impact has this group been able to make, prior to my joining, so that it gives me an idea of some of the areas we might be able to touch on. I think too, making sure is it an advisory type of a group? Is it more of a governing? The style of leadership within the group? Are there assigned roles within the group, or is it just kind of everybody coming together? Is it formal or informal? And I think in our community, we tend to find a really good mixture of both. Like Susan mentioned, she's part of a lot of online groups with, tens of thousands of members. And so that can also look different in how the structure and kind of how that is leaded. So always kind of getting a good idea of what that looks like. I think it's important because it helps you determine kind of what your role in that is or can be, or what you would like that to be. What are the priorities and goals of the group? Again, I always think it's important for us as families to make sure that when we're invited or we're seeking to join groups, that we make sure we know that, and that it really does align with kind of what our priorities and goals are as family representatives. I know through my work the last several years and getting a chance to serve on multiple groups, I tend to get asked to do a lot more because people will come into contact with me and know me. But, I've learned too to be very mindful of my time and making sure that the things that I do choose to get involved in or dedicate my time to really are areas that align well with the priorities and goals that I want to make sure to contribute to. And not to say other groups are bad, it's just our time is valuable. And I always want to remind our families that, you know, we have to value our time in the advocacy realm, as well as the life we have to manage, and the, you know, the issues with our children and our family members and just life in general. So always making sure you look at it from that. Another thing too, just remember, knowing kind of the structure of the group in decision-making process. Again, just to kind of get a sense, is this a group that, you know, is more of an advisory where you can come together and bring forth recommendations or points of consideration? Or is this really a group where maybe decisions can actually be made for effective change? One of the things I've done with some of my newer groups in the last year that I've joined, specifically like the one I mentioned, the Medicaid long-term care, I came into it kind of in the midst of them already working on some priorities. So I had reached out and asked to look at some past meeting minutes, and then I attended a meeting. I had joined, but I kind of attended the meeting more as a silent participant to just get a sense of what the dynamic of the group was and the structure of the meeting. And then I actually had reached out to the liaison who coordinates the group to spend some time with her just to talk through where they were, kind of what they had been working on and what their progress was, and kind of what the intention of going forward. So I could kind of step in and pick up with the rest of the group and not kind of feel that I was a little bit out of the mix. So that's also opportunities or things to consider as you might be tapped to join existing groups that might be working on some existing projects that you might be coming in the middle of. So next slide, Christy.
There we go. Can you see it?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
And I think too, I think at the end we'll just kind of save maybe some questions or thoughts. But I did want to say, as we're going through this, I would love for you guys to think about examples, or if you have any experiences in some of the groups you're currently working on, or even past groups that you might want to share. I think we all learn a lot from one another and our own experiences. So maybe as we go through this, just kind of keep some thoughts and notes or your questions. And then like Christy said at the end, we can make sure we have some time for some good discussion or questions. So the other thing with groups, and this is one I think as I've gotten more involved over the years, that has become more important for me as well, especially in deciding if it's a group I want to dedicate my commitment and my time to, is really understanding where the group work fits into the work of a larger organization or agency, so that you know where your role is, or where the role of this group is. I think sometimes what I found is I've joined groups thinking that we are going to address issues and we are going to work to resolve, and it ends up being that we talk about the issues, we make recommendations, but then it has to go to the part of a larger organization for consideration. And so I think just being mindful of what that looks like so that you know the expectation going in. Another thing too is a process and a timeline for getting things done. The hope is that organized groups have that. I think it's always important that when you are working within a group that you have some sense of a timeline for your work, or getting things completed, either if it's submitting for recommendation or proposing policy change or whatnot. And then for those of you that might be newer into getting into groups, this one I think is key, and it's one that I've had to learn to remember, is be patient. Change takes a long time, and sometimes that can be a little frustrating to really get a sense of how long, it can be before you can actually work to make some significant impact. But I think being patient and never giving up and always being willing to share that voice and be a part of it, you will see that change, even if it's in incremental. So, all right, next one, Christy.
Sorry about that, it went backwards.
That's all right.
Do you want to just interject here that this is coming from the guidebook, and most everybody that attended the summit got the guidebook in person. But if you did not get a spiral bound guidebook, we do have some of these extras. And so just email me your address and we can get one of those in the mail to you sometime next week. So, or possibly the following week, because I know Annette's going to be traveling next week. But we have these in Austin available to mail out. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's great, because I'm sure in addition to with the other modules, I just threw a whole bunch of to-dos your way about assessing a group before you join. So I think this tool is a really good reference to have that kind of help walk you through while you're working with the group, to kind of help you get a sense and a picture of the framework of that group. So yeah, if you don't have the guidebook, definitely let Christy know. And I think this could be definitely a useful tool for you. All right.
Ready for the next one?
Yes, please.
There we go.
All right. So now we've kind of identified the group or another group or groups, and you've decided this is a group you want to participate on, and you've made that commitment to do so. I think now is where we can really talk about your role as the family on that group. I think a lot of times, at least in my experience early on, there were some times where I was brought into a group because there was a requirement, or it was strongly encouraged that they have a family person at the table, but whether it was a token position or whether my role had an actual impact, sometimes it varied. And so I think for us as families, it's been helpful for me to go into these with a clear understanding of what my role in that group will be, so that I'm ready to take up that role and not feel sometimes intimidated by the other members on the group. Sometimes what's been helpful is connecting with, if there's other family leaders or other family representatives that might have served on this group or been part of that group in the past. I've always reached out and kind of asked, give me a sense of how you felt your participation was received. Did you feel like you were able to have real impact? Like, what did that role look like to you? Also connecting with any of the family organizations in your area. A lot of times these groups will reach out through the family organizations to find families on the group, so they may have experience as well, and they can also be a good support and liaison to really kind of validate your role on that. Also, you can ask for a mentor within the group if it's others that within the group that you're joining, and there's someone that you feel comfortable with that might have been on the group for some time. I think it's always good to ask, if they would be willing to kind of mentor you through as you get your bearings or kind of get your feet wet, so to speak, especially if you're newer into serving on any type of a group, just to kind of bounce ideas or questions. I know for some of the groups and councils that I've been on, if they're government agencies or different state agencies, that there's some things you have to be mindful of how you ask questions or what you ask or how you approach things. And so a mentor could be really good at helping to really get you comfortable with engaging in that process. I think coming prepared is important. I know a lot of times they might send agendas ahead of time they may send out discussion points. So I always try to take an opportunity to spend some time on that prior to the meeting for two reasons. One, it kind of gets my reference in check of, what's the conversation going to be? How would I be prepared to respond to some of that or ask questions, or what are some of the questions I might want to ask? Or if there's things on the list that I'm not familiar with, it's always helpful to be able to do some research ahead of time to maybe familiarize myself, whether they might be talking about another organization or an agency, or we all know the acronym alphabet soup that's out there. If it's an organization I'm not familiar with, looking that up so that I at least feel a little more comfortable coming in. Sometimes if it's a formal group, you will have to vote on minutes from the prior meeting. So again, I think it's always good to just spend some time familiarizing yourself or getting reminded of what the previous meeting would have been. You can always ask for the group's written guidance on what that looks like for voting, motions to vote to approve minutes, motions to vote for budgetary things. And then I think for families, one of the other key thing that I would say early on is make sure you inquire about what are the attendance and support requirements. So I think we're fortunate in this day and age now that there are so many of these meetings that have the opportunity to participate remotely through Zoom or WebEx, and it's not always in person. Although I will say for some of mine that I sit on, I tend to get a lot more from the in-person meetings than I do remotely. So it's helpful for me to kind of prioritize which ones are good remote and which ones do I need to be mindful to try to get there in person. But understanding if the group is formal and what their procedures are too is important, because I've been in groups before where I make an effort to show up, I get there in person, but the rules of the group require that at least half or 2/3 have to be present for a vote. And if not everybody shows up, then it's kind of like we don't get to accomplish a whole lot. So making sure you know what that attendance is, and one, can you commit to that, I think is important. And it's okay if you can't, but just making sure you know what you're committing to. And then the other thing is there's a lot of work being done to really value families and family participation. So a lot of times there might be an opportunity for a reimbursement or a stipend for participating. And I think making sure up front what that looks like, and then understanding what that process is, if there is that opportunity, how to submit for that, and making sure that you are prepared and have everything you need to do that. Sometimes they'll offer childcare. So I think if that's a barrier or a concern, is, finding out what other supports might be available to help you decide about that commitment. And then, like Christy mentioned earlier, one of the key things that I think is so important is planning your introduction carefully, especially if you're new to the group. And my daughter is 14, and our world has changed and evolved considerably over the 14 years. So I feel like my story changes all the time. And I really had to be good at figuring out how to be very concise about our story, and feeling okay that I don't necessarily have to give our entire story. A lot of times you can look at the group that you're working within, and you can pull pieces of your story that are very relevant to that group, and making sure that you can be a little more concise in that regard, so that you're not going through a 10-minute, because I'm sure a lot of us can relate to that. It could take 10 minutes for us to tell our story from start to finish. But I think being able to have different variations of your story, depending on the different type of group or who might be coming into that group each meeting, or who, you know, a lot of times groups will bring in speakers, or they may have different presenters that might come in to help you work on projects. So I think spending some time too to really think about how could I plan and create my family story in different scenarios so that I have my quick, you know, elevator pitch, so to speak, to be able to share depending on who I'm going to be speaking to at the time. All right, Christy, next one.
Yep. There you go.
And also in the guidebook, there's a great resource that kind of helps you walk through sharing your family story. So this could be a good tool for you to practice on and kind of write it out. You know, sometimes it's good to just kind of, you know, spew it all out on a piece of paper, and then you can kind of pull and refine and work to create your different versions. I love this tool because I think the 3 questions they pose is, these are questions that I think are really good to begin a framework of any story that you're going to tell. You know, who are you? I think it's always important to share what is bringing you to this group. Again, it aligns with the goals and the priorities of the group, and also what your goals and priorities are. And then what will you bring to the group? I think it's so important for us as advocates and family representatives, having the opportunity to participate in this realm, is to really make the rest of our group participants understand the value that we bring and why it's important that we're there. So think about, you know, not just, you know, what you expect the group to do and what you want out of the group, but really be mindful of the strengths and the skill set that you bring to that group, and how you can be an active participant and really help to impact change. All right, next one. I think another area we work on, and this is one of the areas in our program that I try to work on with our families a lot, is really being able to represent others. You know, I don't know if you all are familiar, but there's kind of a mindset out there about family leaders or family advisors, and we call it kind of the circle. And there's those that are starting out and, you know, are getting their feet wet in the advocacy, and so they're really good about being advocates for their story, their situation, their child, their family. And then there's a little outer ring that is, they're more ready and able to do more in the community setting. And so they're advocating on behalf of their community, and then a state level, and then like a national level. So as you start moving through your journey of advocacy, or you may already be there, you know, being mindful of the group that you're in, what is your role in that, as far as, are you solely there to represent yourself, or are you there to represent families as a community? And part of that means that you have to be kind of mindful and knowing what's happening in your community. So I think with online and social media, we have that benefit of the various groups that we're involved within, to kind of get a sense of what might be happening in our community. Making sure you kind of are able to speak within the group of other families. It's not a bad thing to always pull from your own experience, but if your role in that group is to be there on behalf of families, as you know, multiple families within your community, it's important that you're not always sharing examples or experiences that are solely your own. It's important to be able to share experiences of other families within your community. And also being mindful of confidentiality with that too, you know, being very general, not sharing pertinent information about those families unless you have that permission from them to do so. I know here I'm part of several Facebook and online groups with like our medically complex and different family groups and some of the leadership in the family organizations. And because some of the groups I sit on are our state systems of care, it's good for me to see what's happening. And if I start seeing common themes of barriers or challenges that families are posting about, it reminds me that this may be something I might need to bring up as a community issue. And so a lot of times I'll reach out to them through private message or DM and say, you know, I sit on this council, and if you guys are experiencing this, it would be really good for me to be able to bring that up. Would you be able to share some more specific information? And by doing that and engaging with the families and making yourself available and known, you'll find too that people will know that. And I've had, you know, someone might post in a Facebook group about a really bad experience or a challenge, and I'll see somebody will say, oh, you know, you should let Dawn Bailey know, like she sits on the council, and maybe, she may be able to bring that up, or I may know what's happening from a system side of things that I can then relay information back about how to best navigate that. You know, it could just be they're not getting good information from whatever. I've also done surveys. So, you know, sometimes something will come up and our group may be looking at asking for information related to an issue or a challenge or a population of our community that I don't necessarily have direct experience with. So a lot of times I'll reach out to the administrators of these groups and ask if I could do a quick survey and say, you know, are there any families out there that have had challenges with X, Y, and Z? And then it helps me get a sense so that I can bring that back as well. And then it's always important, and this is a huge thing for me too, that if I'm asking of families in the community, that I'm making sure to follow up with them after. You know, if I've gone to the meeting or I've been able to find out additional information, or because of what their experience has, you know, shined light on an issue that nobody realized was happening and that is being looked at or addressed, I will make sure to always go back to that community group and give a follow-up to say, you know, here's what the conversation was, here's what is happening, you know, be on the lookout for this or whatnot. And I think another important thing that I've come to learn in this is that while because of my ability to be able to do this and my connections within the community and being asked to participate on a lot of things, you know, there are often times where when I'm involved in the project, I realize that, you know, while I may have some experience, I may not be the only voice that should be heard on this. Specifically when we're talking about issues that look very different for cultural diversity, health inequities, and different things that I just cannot represent to the level that should be represented in that group. And so when we find ourselves there, I think it's important that we make sure we also work to bring in the right families that can be representative of those areas where the project might be more focused on helping the challenges or the barriers within their communities, and being okay to say, you know what, I know a little about this, but I am not the right person that should be speaking on behalf of all of these families. And it's interesting because even with our state team stuff, I run into that challenge as well. You know, our underserved population project is working within our Navajo Nation. And while I'm the consumer on the state team, you know, from a general consensus, I can talk about the importance of, you know, the family involvement and making sure that, you know, family centered while we're working on these. I certainly cannot speak to what those challenges and barriers are for those within our Navajo Nation. So my goal and my role is to be the advocate to make sure that we get that appropriate representation and making sure that we're getting the right voice at the table as well. I think. And then these are just some resources. Again,
go on. Sorry, Dawn.
That's okay. These are some resources that you can look into that have some really good tools and information, more for some of that leadership, professional collaboration. I think for those that are, very seasoned and are probably been involved for a long time and serve on a lot of groups, this probably isn't new information to you. For those that are newer and just kind of getting, started on your journey in the advocacy and family leadership, I think it's good to look into these. I would also encourage to reach out to your state's Family to Family or Family Voices affiliate. A lot of states, well, not a lot, I shouldn't say that. Several states, I'm not sure how many anymore, also have a policy or partners in policy making curriculum out there, and they do some more like leadership institutes for family advisors, family partners, family leaders. And so I think any type of resource that you can look into in your state just to help with more skills and more leadership opportunities, understanding what your state systems of care look like, will really help you know how to navigate these different groups and how, one, to be very mindful of the type of groups you want to be part of and what that looks like and where you see yourself, but also just understanding too, like what the landscape looks like as far as what other areas also work within this realm and who your partners and collaboration partners could be as well. So I think that about does it.
Good, thank you, Dawn. All right, I'm gonna stop sharing this screen. I will post these slides will be on our Mountain States website as well as the recording of this call sometime next week. I'll get those up. So if anybody wants to look back at the resources, if you want me to send you the text of the resources so you don't have to type that in, I'm happy to do that as well. So I am gonna now, let's see, give me a second to get out of my screen share here. There we go. All right, I'm gonna now switch gears. Thank you, Dawn, so much for doing that. Do we wanna open it up just to see if we have any quick questions on that part while I'm getting my slides up for the updates part? Does anyone have any questions they wanna ask Dawn? Don't be shy. All right, we can open it up for more discussion at the end. Thank you. I think the sharing of the story is such an important part, and representing other voices and other families is so important. So thank you for highlighting those. All right, I'm pulling up my other ones. Can everyone see those? Hopefully, yes. Okay, there we go. Except I've got everybody in the middle there. There we go. Okay. So these are the second part of the call. I usually give some updates on Mountain States stuff. So we will scroll through these. I think everybody has been on the call before, so I'm going to skip past a couple of these. Our mission statement is here, as well as our funding statement from HRSA. And what is a genetic ambassador? I think everybody's been on a genetic ambassador call before, so I won't go through the details of that, but I do want to welcome and that we're always looking for new genetic ambassadors. So if you know somebody who'd like to get involved, these calls are a great way to get involved with Mountain States and so in our region. So what's new at Mountain States? We just had another Facebook Live on Wednesday in honor of Autism Awareness Month. Dr. Daryl Scott, who's an associate professor from Baylor College of Medicine, answered 3 questions, 3 of our top questions that came back on our survey about autism. And we played those 3 consecutively, or 3 different top of the hours. And those are now archived. We have them both on our website, and you can see them on the Facebook page under the videos tab. So I thought he did a really great job of just drawing a connection, I guess, between genetics and autism. We had reached out to quite a few autism societies, autism organizations in our region as a way to outreach and connect with some other consumers, some other families, some other individuals, to let them know about Mountain States. So that looked like we got a good response. I saw some of the views this morning. Some of them have been viewed 50 or 60 times. So we would love your help in sharing that and sharing that with your community that you know. So with that, I'd like to make a call for consumer subject matter experts, because we are still continuing to do these Facebook Lives. We're calling it Your Genetic Questions Answered, and we have so many questions that got submitted in the survey that we did last fall. Many of those questions are things that pertain to consumers and are on consumer advocacy. And I truly believe that we have a region full of subject matter experts, and everybody on this call is a subject matter expert in genetics. And you say, Christy, but I'm not a geneticist. And I say, but you are a consumer of genetic services. You have walked the walk, you know the family perspective. And so you are a subject matter expert in your own right. And so we had started this series with featuring a consumer. Heidi Wallace was our first Facebook Live, and she answered a consumer advocacy question. So I would love to continue in that realm. So if anybody's interested in doing this, I can send you a document with all the questions that were submitted, and you can just look through it and see if there's one that pops off the page at you. And we do this by Zoom. We record it so that you can mess up and try it again, and we record it, and then I edit it, and then we play it live on Facebook. So if you're interested in that, let me know. And we've got a couple in the hopper that we've recorded already, but we're always looking for new ones, and I would love to feature some more consumers. All right, let's see. My mouse is really touchy today. Sorry about that, Dawn. I kept bumping it, and then it would go to the next slide. So I wanted to let you guys know about our pop-ups. We had put out an application in March for some pop-ups. We have some pictures at the bottom that Annette just provided me. This is what our gene in the box looks like. And the pop-ups are coming with a $300 budget to cover gift cards as thank yous to the attendees, and also for food and drink. And the idea of a pop-up is just a small gathering held in your local community, spearheaded by none other than the genetic ambassadors. So this is our little map here. Can you see that? Of all our pop-ups. You might have to move your pictures around. These are our genetic pop-ups, the 8 that were awarded for this grant year 2. And I tried to put them in order here of when they're gonna take place. So Allison from the Sickle Cell Association of Texas is having one this weekend in Houston as part of, they're doing it in combination with their empowerment conference. Maria's gonna have one, and Jamie, both in Colorado. Theirs are coming up next weekend. Kathy and Dawn are doing one in Yuma, Arizona. They're still finalizing the date of their pop-up. Susan's working on one in Dallas. Susan, that's on the phone here with us today. Mary, who's also on the phone with us today, has her pop-up scheduled for May 23rd in Reno. And Melissa and Casey, sorry, I should have put your name there too, Casey. I was going by who applied for it, but Melissa and Casey are working on one in Austin. And then Kenneth is working on one in Wyoming. And he does not have the date set for that yet, but it's going to be in the Sheridan area. So if you're in any of those areas and are interested in getting involved, or me connecting you with any of those individuals, just reach out to me and let me know. But I'm really excited to see how these are going to turn out, because every single person I've talked to on this list has a different idea of a way to customize the pop-up for their community. And that's what this pop-up idea is all about. It's basically taking the strength of the genetic ambassadors and the knowledge of your community and making it something that can be applicable to the individuals that you're working with, and you know the people to invite around the table that you can get the conversation started and sharing resources with them, whether they be family members directly or whether they be people who work with family members to get genetics information into their hands. Some other things that have been going on is we have a Family Voices Leadership Conference coming up in Washington, D.C. in May. It's actually going to be, it's not next week, but the week after. And we are excited to be taking 3 scholarship winners from Mountain States. We announced this on the last Genetic Ambassadors call. We had quite a bit of interest. And we're also taking 1 staffer, and that's me. But Jen, Jamie, and Alyssa will all be attending Washington, D.C. Family Voices Leadership Conference. And this scholarship is funded in part by the National Genetics Education and Family Support Center, which is a grant that is out of Genetic Alliance in conjunction with Family Voices. So we are really excited to be going to that. I will be presenting on consumer engagement and in a virtual world at that conference. And our scholarship winners will actually be taking the Train the Trainer training that Susan and Dawn and I and a couple others took about 18 months ago to do this exact type of training that we did today. So Jen, Jamie, and Alyssa will be being trained as Train the Trainers so they can go into their communities and do serving on groups. And then we had 2 other scholarship opportunities also funded by the National Genetics Education and Family Support Center. And those were Adrian was awarded to go to the AmChip conference. And Adrian's on the phone. And Adrian, if you have just a second, would you mind telling us just a little bit about your experience? If you're still available.
Sure, I have to take myself on mute. No, it was an amazing experience. I wasn't sure, going there what to expect. As far as the AmChip, I wasn't really familiar with the organization. And from the get-go, everyone was so welcoming. They brought me right into the fold, filled me in on everything. And I tried to stick with seminars that applied to Mountain States as also my Duke 15Q Alliance role and also as a mother. So I'm trying to balance these 3 hats on which ones I wanted to concentrate on, which ones I wanted to go to. And every single one that I went to, they were very focused on family leadership and parent advocates. And it was very empowering, got tons of great information to use and to take back and try to use. And even on the serving on groups, it was very twofold. The reason why I went out there is I took a course in the cultural agility, and that was the main focus for me going out there. And I learned a lot. A lot of it did fold back onto serving on groups. Christy even pointed out that they shared even some of the same slides. So it was wonderful. And if I get the opportunity to go out there again, I would welcome it. I didn't get to spend the whole conference there, only a couple of days just due to time constraints. But I think if I went out there again, I would really try to get coverage and care for my son to be able to attend the full conference because it was so well worth it.
That's awesome. Thank you. And we should tell everybody on the phone that's not familiar with that acronym that AmChip stands for Association of Maternal Child Health Programs, I think. Did I say that right?
Yes.
Okay. Thanks, Dawn. So many of the attendees come from maternal child health bureaus in the different states, and this is a conference to bring all those leaders together, but Family Voices was involved from the family leadership perspective. I'm so glad to hear you got to go to a lot of other sessions by different states, right? I remember you telling me was it North Carolina that you sent me the jump drive from that did,
North Carolina.
It was really doing a lot of family leadership and family involvement. Great. Thank you
right,
so
and
much
doing their own training. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thanks so much for sharing. And Melissa also went out to Kansas City where Family Voices was doing a serving on groups training there as well. And I just found out Melissa is going to help me co-present May's serving on groups because she was just trained. So tune in May for Melissa to help out with that. I don't think Melissa's on the call, right? I think just Casey. So anyway, Melissa got a scholarship to go out there for that. So the other thing I wanted to make sure everybody had on their calendar, if you are interested, because I anticipate that there will be some scholarships coming for this, was we have announced the date of our 2019 Genetics Summit, and it's going to be in Albuquerque, New Mexico on September 23rd through 25th. We're anticipating that on the 22nd, we will have a state team meeting. So any of you involved with state teams, there will be some funding. I think it's up to 5 people from the state teams will be reimbursed for their going to that, and that'll be a state team decision. But like last year, we had some consumer scholarships, and I'm anticipating we'll have some more as we get a little bit closer. So be on the lookout for that. But if it's something that you're really interested in and really want to apply for a scholarship for, go ahead and block these dates off now on your calendar because I know how the summer and the fall get, and before you know it, school started and boom, this conference is going to be here. So. All right, I wanted to start on these calls highlighting our resource of the month. I thought as I've been putting together these gene in a boxes for our genetics pop-ups, I've come across some amazing resources that are out there, most of them free and available. And so I want to just highlight some of the things that we've been putting together for the pop-ups, but that really anyone can use. So I'm not sure how many on the call know about GARD. The acronym stands for Genetic and Rare Disease Information Center. I put their funding statement there. They're kind of funded by a lot of different organizations, from National Center for Advancing Translation Sciences, NIH, and then National Human Genome Research Institute. But they are focused on rare diseases, and they have a 1-800 number that is staffed by genetic counselors. And I think this is an invaluable resource for families and in our communities, because if someone has gotten a new diagnosis and it is a rare diagnosis and they don't have necessarily a local support group to turn to, they might have a national support groups for some of these, but some of them might be so rare that there's not even a support group that exists. They can get in touch with the GARD information specialist at this 1-800 number or 1-888 number here and ask questions. I did this when I first learned about this. I think it was last year I learned about this, and I went through it. I called as a parent and gave them my information, and the lady was so helpful, asked me what I needed. At that time, my daughter's specialist was moving from our children's hospital, so I was really looking for other specialists that we could connect with locally. And they did the research for me. They basically said, okay, we'll take down all your questions, and they asked me what I needed, and then she said, give me 7 to 12 days, and I will get back to you with an email with answers of what I find. And she did. She followed up. So I highly recommend this. It's not so comprehensive that it's going to overwhelm a family. They're going to give the family the questions they're looking for. So they also have a ton of the questions that are asked to them archived on their website. So you can search on their website for a condition, and then they have listed the conditions and then the answers that they've gotten on that, the questions they've gotten on that condition and the answers below it, if that makes sense, for what are turning out to be frequently asked questions that they've gotten through their hotline. So I just wanted to let you guys know about this. I have flyers for it. There's a downloadable one online that we are printing and putting in the genetics pop-up boxes. But if you would like one or like more information, just contact me and I can get you that. All right. In the interest of time, we got a couple minutes left. Let me wrap this up. These, I just want to remind everybody the Genetics Ambassador Facebook group, we have about 20 members in there now. So if there's anybody on this call that's not in that group, I use it from the perspective to, of course, have a conversation in between these calls. Anyone can post anything that's going on or questions that they have for other ambassadors on it. But as things come up, sometimes it's so quickly that we have a short turnaround time. So I found that even sending an email, you know how we get overwhelmed with emails. Sometimes I'm able to post a scholarship opportunity or something in there and then tag everyone. And so you'll get an alert or notice on Facebook that you've been tagged in a post. And so that's just another way to alert you that, hey, something's going on and it's really, we're on a real short timeline for applications or things like that. So I try to use it from that perspective too. I don't try to post daily in there, so don't worry, it's not a ton of traffic, but I do hope the ones of you that are in there have found it helpful. And if somebody would like to be added, I need to send you an email through Facebook. So if anybody's had any trouble, I did see that there were a couple of inquiries that had not joined. So if you're having trouble and you never got the email from me, reach out to me and I can send it to you again. We've got our Facebook and our Twitter. I wanted to show you guys real quick where the Facebook Lives were, so you could find those. On the Facebook page, there is a videos tab, and all of these are videos. And so you can click on that tab and you can see all of our past Facebook Lives. The other thing I did is on this families tab on our website, I've added a your genetics questions answered drop down, and all the YouTube links to the genetics questions are on there as well. So you can either share them, send somebody a YouTube video, or you can share it from Facebook. So those are the two ways to access those your genetic questions answered. We also have a genetic ambassadors drop down on that for families, and that's where I archive all of these trainings and genetic ambassador calls.
Christy, did you have
Yep.
any feedback from anybody watching the last little pop-up? I mean, the last little
Say it again, Susan.
Did you have anybody giving you feedback on the last presentation that was made there?
On the autism ones?
Yeah.
Not specifically, like they haven't reached out to me. But even on the other ones that we haven't seen that, what we've seen is if people watch them and then share them. So I did see that there were a couple shares on some of them.
Okay.
And my thought is since I reached out at the beginning of the week to a lot of autism organizations, is to follow up and send them an email just with the link where they can see the archives. That's another way to let them know, okay, it's happened. We were trying to contact them on the front end so that they, would watch, but on the back end, okay, these have happened and here's the archives of those.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, I want to be cognizant of everybody's time. It's 3 o'clock, but I will stay on here and maybe Dawn can stay on for a minute or two. If anybody needs to run, we totally understand, but if anybody would like to ask any questions or have a little conversation, I'm open to that if anybody would like to stay on for a few minutes. I'm gonna stop my share here. There we go. Does anybody have any questions about what's going on in Mountain States or what's or the Serving On Groups call or the genetics pop-ups or the Facebook Lives or any of that? No, Susan's shaking her head. She's ready to have a pop-up. Got some people interested, right?
Yeah.
Good. And I don't know, Janelle's on here. Janelle, I don't know, you're not anywhere close to Sheridan, are you, in Wyoming? I was gonna say I could connect you with KC. He's having that one in Wyoming. I'm not sure if she's close by to him or not. And then KC, I saw an email saying that you guys were looking down a different path maybe for your location. So I'm not sure if they've finalized their location yet in Austin. So. Group, everybody's in TGIF mode.
After our pop-ups, it would probably be valuable for people to share how it went. And,
I would love that. One of my big asks for the pop-up is to take lots of pictures, so we can do just that.
Oh,
we can share with pictures, and hopefully have the pop-up ambassadors on here to share their experience with it and tips for next time. My hope is that this is the first time we've ever done this, so my hope is that if they go well in May, in the next couple weeks, that we are able to take this information back to our management team and say, hey, can we have the similar funding or more funding for year 3, and can we try this again, maybe on a broader scale, maybe with more opportunities. But it's been really exciting talking to everybody because everybody has such great ideas. You know, Jamie Stefanski's pairing hers with a already existing event for special needs families. The one this weekend is for sickle cell families. So it's neat to see some people are, you know, choosing to do them as an intimate conversations, which is perfect. When we came up with the pop-up idea, we wanted it to be the most simple thing possible for a family to do, a genetic ambassador to do. We didn't want it to overwhelm anyone, but the sky's the limit. You guys can take this and make it your own. So I appreciate everybody's participation and excitement about it. So
very cool.
All right. Well, if there's no other questions, I'll let everyone go. We'll stop the meeting here, and everybody have a wonderful weekend. And look for a date. Oh, go ahead. Did somebody say something? No? Okay. Look for a date in May. It'll probably be towards the end of May since we've got quite a bit going on at the beginning of May with travel to the conference and things. So look for a date in May for our Serving on Groups session 8, which will be skills groups use. So I'll talk to you guys later and have a good weekend.
Have a good one. Bye. Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you. Bye.